All right, questions?
This question is for Brenda Lee, for starters. One, you mentioned there's a list of things that we need to analyze in our home. Do you have that list? You mentioned that bathroom doors should swing out. Is there another more completely list that could that you have that you could share?
So there's actually a certification called CAPS, C-A-P-S. Is that me making that noise? No. Okay. So I have a few people who are CAPS certified that I refer to, and they will come into your home and do that analysis for you. I certainly do. You know, if I receive a call, I mean, I did it for Pat when I visit with her. But if you want to if you're going to age in place long term, I highly recommend you get somebody who's CAPS certified. My email was up at the end. Scott and Laura have my information. I was not smart enough. I told you to bring business cards today. So if you email me, I'm certainly happy to give you a list of a few people who are CAPS certified that can come into your home and do a much better job than my 20-minute visit.
Next question. Tom.
My guess is there's more than a few of us in the room whose children would like them to come live with them or close to them. Just happens to be outside of San Diego. I would be interested in all of your opinions on the desirability, or do you handle that type of thing, especially the housing? Do you deal with housing opportunities and trade-offs outside, or do you make referrals to other?
Outside of San Diego, you mean?
Right.
So I actually have
other parts of the country.
Okay, I have a network across the country. There's a few places. I don't have anyone in Nevada. South Dakota, I guess, doesn't have very many people or something, because I couldn't find any support there. And I couldn't find anybody in Alaska. But other than that, I've pretty much managed to find somebody in most places. There's a couple places in New York State. You know, I found someone in Buffalo, but I couldn't provide support in Jamestown. So there's a few times I haven't, but I've done pretty well at finding support. It just takes me, sometimes you have to give me a little bit of time, because I have to go out and, you know, shake the tree to get a little information.
How about trusts and wills? I had the unfortunate opportunity to work with an aunt's death who happened to live in Texas, and I discovered that their laws are very different than ours. If we put together trusts and wills and have it reviewed here, what's the impact on that on moving out of state?
Ken?
I didn't understand the question. You're asking, is your California trust good in Texas? Is that what you're saying?
Or anywhere in the country?
Anywhere in the country.
Okay.
Usually your trust will provide that it is governed by California law. So if you go to New Jersey and have it administered there, you'll be administering according to California law. But that doesn't mean it's not valid. It's totally valid. Well, Louisiana, as you know, is unique. But as far as I know, yes, it would still be able, because you're administering it not by Louisiana law, but by California law. So.
Right here.
You had talked of different types of power of attorney, and is the durable power of attorney the overall one? I don't understand if you have to have one for medical, one for...
Well, the power of attorney, there's two that are the primary powers of attorney. And one is what we call a durable power of attorney for health care. That's the one for medical decisions and medical care. And then there's the power of attorney for asset management. That is the one that will handle your financial affairs. So that agent has the ability, if you give him an outright power, and by that I mean it's not springing. Springing would come into effect if you become incompetent. But if you want to give them an outright power of attorney today, that person could go out and do anything on your behalf. They could sell your house, they could mortgage your house, they could go out and incur debts in your name because you've given them complete authority over your person. So we use the springing only because only when you are not able to do it for yourself is this person then going to come in and handle your affairs. But as I indicated, as we get older and get closer to that threshold where really you should have a general power of attorney, we will switch over from springing to general. And that's because when you have a springing power of attorney, before you can use it, you have to have letters from doctors establishing that you are incompetent before somebody will take it. Also, Laura can probably answer this. My experience has been the title companies will not take a power of attorney in transferring property, real property. So it becomes very difficult to use that in that particular situation. But as far as doing income taxes and handling bank accounts and whatever that are not in the name of a trust, but in the name of the individual that you have the power for, fine. And those do end when you pass. Interestingly enough, I had a bank once when I went in to do a trust administration, wanting to see my powers of attorney. And I said, what? They said, well, we have to have your power of attorney. I said, well, you do realize they end when the person dies. So they are of no import in this situation. But even bankers are not familiar. And
So if,
can you get a mic?
Yeah.
can I?
Pat finish.
Yeah, so are you saying, I have a trust and I have the power of attorney or durable, I've assigned that, but I don't recall having two, one for medical.
Well, you should have one for asset management. There should be two, one
Okay.
for asset management and one for your health care.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And just to clarify, is the power of attorney for medical, is that a healthcare directive?
It includes that. It's
Okay.
within it.
Thank you.
Also included in that document is your funeral wishes, whether you want to be cremated or buried or how you want to be buried and, that type of thing. And that way, the person who has that power of attorney has the right to dispose of your body according to that document.
This is for Ken. I have two questions. One is, if my documents were done over 20 years ago, should they be reviewed again now?
Yes. And I had somebody come up to me and ask me that question, and the concern was, well, what does that entail? Well, normally, if it's probably 20 years old, we would do what's called a restatement of the entire trust. And so you start off by simply revoking all the previous documents, and then this becomes the new trust document as far as the terms and conditions. However, it does not change the date on the trust or the name of the trust. It goes all the way back to the beginning. So you have to keep your original trust as far as that goes, but you don't have to refund all of your assets into this new restated trust. It's automatically done, and that's a big thing because we all know that funding is not so fun.
Okay. And my second question was, if you have a trust, do you have to have a will also?
Do you have to have a what?
A will.
A will? Oh, absolutely. What the will does is when you have a trust, your will be a pour-over will. And what that means is when you read your will, it says your beneficiary is your trust. So the will leaves everything to your trust. And the importance of that is that, and we've had it happen all the time, where they forget to put something into the trust, like a bank account or something, or certainly a car, and those things have to be put into the trust for disposition purposes. Now, they don't require us to actually take the car and put it into the name of the trust and then give it to the person we're selling it to. They'll let us skip that step and go right to the sale. But you go in and you show them, okay, basically the trust is the beneficiary of the will. The trust provides that the trustee can do whatever, and they'll transfer for title. But I had a client that she basically had $100,000, well, actually it was $500,000 worth of accounts. She was very wealthy, and I did her estate plan, and I monitored her for years, and I was totally unaware of this, but she had $7 or $8 million in her actual estate. But for whatever reason, she had $500,000 sitting around at various brokerage firms and banks. I had to actually probate all of that to put it into the trust. So that's what the pour-over will did. Without that, I would not have been able to do it because I wouldn't have been named as the executor, which I was on her will, and been able to have authority to do that. So a pour-over will is very, very important.
One of the things that and Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know with real estate that if you do not have a bank account in the trust's name, you must have a bank account in your trust's name. If you don't, the proceeds of the sale of your home will sit there until you get a bank account in your trust's name, because the escrow company can only write and issue a check to the trust. So you need to have that account. So if you have a trust and you don't have a bank account in the trust name, go get one.
Mine was, can you have two separate people be on a general power of attorney?
Yes, you can. You're talking about a power of attorney for asset management, not for making medical decisions?
For everything up to the point of, like, for everything that would be up to the point, so my brother and I, could we both have a power of attorney for my mom if she needs any kind of banking things done before she passes or any kind of things like that?
Well, she could give a power of attorney to more than one person.
That's my question.
The problem that you have is you've got to
Then
be
you got
in
two
sync with
people.
one another. Otherwise, you'll drive these people crazy. And for the power of attorney for healthcare, no, one person. I have, even when I talked about having an odd number, that still creates all kinds of problems, especially not so much with dealing with the remains of the decedent, but in dealing with making medical decisions, life support. I can vote on that and say, okay, two say yes and one says no. But does mom get an operation or not? That becomes a more difficult situation. It's just better to have one person, and then you have successors. So if that person can't act or doesn't want to act, then the next person. Because sometimes the person, when the time comes, says, there's no way I can terminate mom's life support. I know she wanted that, but I can't do it. I'll resign and let brother do it because brother will do it or whatever. So, I mean, it's not a good idea to have more than one person on the power of attorney for health care.
Ken, isn't it true that in advance directive, you do not need an attorney, you just need someone to notarize it?
Correct.
Correct? Because our agency and other home health agencies and social workers can assist with that. If you don't have an advance directive in place, they can do that with you. And then, like Ken said, durable power of attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, is for the medical, and the power of attorney is financial.
Correct.
Correct?
And you realize when you check somebody into a hospital, now husband and wife, this is a whole different situation because a wife can do things for her husband, vice versa. But if you're checking your parent into the hospital, the first thing they want to know is who's paying for this. And again, you have to put your name on the line as you're paying for it unless you have a durable power of attorney for asset management. In other words, that then gives you authority to sign on their behalf saying, yes, I'll pay the hospital bill. So that's an important document to have. But, yeah. And like they're saying, they can provide this document if you don't have it. In other words, you don't have to go get a durable power of attorney for health care. But the problem is you have to have somebody that has the ability to do that.
Yeah, and sign it.
They have to be competent.
Yeah.
And that sometimes is not the case, and it is a problem. Also, hospitals, the first thing they'll ask you is, do you have a durable
Post.
power of attorney? And
Yep.
having worked with Scripps and UCSD, I know every time I go see my doctor, I have to fill out a pre-appointment questionnaire with the same questions I've answered every day. And in there is, do you have a power of attorney for healthcare, and do we have a copy of it? And that's important if, again, you go to a particular hospital on a regular basis, that they have that. And your doctor should certainly have it, because what will happen is the hospital will call your treating physician or your doctor, and they will ask him for it if they don't have it, and then he sends it over, and that works well.
If you have an elderly relative who doesn't want to deal with, they don't like to talk about their trust, but there's rumor in the family that they've made markings on it and crossed things out and changed things, would that invalidate the trust, or what do you
It
do in that
doesn't
situation?
invalidate the trust. It means that not all those markings are useless.
Okay, so
They don't mean anything.
okay, so
Yeah,
it's
the
just
un-
as originally stated, the
Yes,
trust.
trust documents are legal documents that can only be amended according to legal procedure, and that requires a trust amendment.
But they
Okay,
can't contest it. They can contest it.
Oh, they certainly can contest it. I mean, and that's what would happen probably.
Yeah.
And that's what you don't want to have happen. But yes, I've had clients that have come in with documents that have been moved, scribbled and whatnot all over. And basically I tell them, that's nice, but that really is something we can't do. You cannot amend the trust by just scratching things out. You have to do a trust amendment.
And isn't it also, there's a form Lori referred to called a POLST, which is a pink sheet that your doctor will help you fill out, physician's orders for life-sustaining treatment. And that is a medical form that is filled out and registered now with the county. There's actually an online registration where they're trying to make it more accessible. And if you have that form in addition, it's good for you to make sure you have it accessible in your home if emergency services are called in, because they're not going to take the time to read your health care directive if you call 911. So having that form available is good.
Well, they didn't have that form when I was practicing. It's more recent. And a lot of nursing homes require that you do have that on your refrigerator in your unit or whatever.
It's called.
I've talked to my daughter about that, who's an attorney, and attorneys don't like that. And doctors don't like it particularly either because it can conflict with other documents. And I've also heard, and you probably know this because you have a paramedic in the family, that the paramedics don't like it because they do not have time when they come out to deal with the situation to determine, is this document genuine? And before they not save somebody, they're not going to sit there and say, well, should we or should we? So they'll resuscitate. And they will resuscitate the person. If they want them to die, they'll take them to the hospital and let them die there. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've been told, that the paramedics...
Depends on the paramedic.
Depends on the paramedic. They might look at this person and say, he's got to go.
Right.
And it depends on which department, of course, as well. For sure, this online virtual registration is helping because when they call the hospital can say, well, they have a pulse that says this when they're making the call and are going to the home. So for some of the cities in San Diego County, they're more useful than others. It's certainly something that's considered. But if you don't have it available, then it's not going to... then they can't even consider it, for sure.
Well, I think the important thing there is that when they take the individual into the hospital, they said, here's this document, they have this document, this is what their wishes are, and then the hospital's on the hook. They can make the decision whether or not to not administer life-saving.
It's called POLST, P-O-L-S-T.
It's a pink
Physician's
form.
Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. And it's a two-sided pink sheet that is becoming very popular in the county. And it's actually different names across the country. They have it in many places.
It is
a
a legal document, and people... Yes. Yes.
You can Google it. Just Google that pulse, and it'll come up.
It has to be signed by a physician.
For the two women, since I'm not going to get 100, it's not, there you go.
Eat the mic.
Eat the mic, all right. For the two women, is there these facilities that you mentioned and the care and the gradings and stuff, are there several facilities that are sensitive to dietary items like gluten-free, no sugar, things like that and can you name one or two of them?
Well, for example, I have had several Jewish clients, and Seacrest has a kosher kitchen, would be an example. I have some that will do, and of course, if someone is not cognitively competent, it's not that those things won't be available on the menu, but it's that you can choose the items on the menu that meet those requirements. In other words, if somebody does not eat pork or is allergic to shellfish or is gluten-free, it doesn't mean there won't be those items available, but it means that there will be items that can fit that dietary requirement.
Substitutes.
Does that make sense? Did I make myself clear?
Do you know of a community that has those?
That's good at that?
available?
I can tell you that, let me just think for a sec. So Santillana in Carlsbad was very good at making sure my client who is celiac, who means they can't eat gluten, is very good at making sure that the food prepared for her is prepared on a surface that doesn't have any gluten. Now, there's other communities, that will do it as well. Usually what I do is when I have a client like that and we're doing that individualized level and it's very specific, part of my screening is to phone those communities and have a discussion with them around that before I even make the recommendation.
And get everything in writing, and also when you move in, have the chef, give it to the chef.
And chef will actually come and, in a good community, the chef will sit down and consult with the person that's moving in. I had a community that had a client, we'd just gone for lunch. We were just touring it and went for lunch, and the chef came out, sat down with us at lunchtime and had a conversation with her around what her dietary needs are.
And there is a nursing home in Encinitas that is totally kosher.
Yeah, that's Seacrest.
Seacrest.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful facility.
Yeah, for the right person.
Okay, I think, not to get you in any trouble, Ken, but is there a list of trust lawyers that would be recommended or would be good people to go and talk to? So,
There is.
I'm sure you know one.
Practicing trust in estate law is a specialty, and there is a list of all the specialists, of which there are many, many, many. So it does become difficult. I never advertise personally, but all of my clients came by word of mouth from referrals. And so that's usually the best way, is to ask your friends who do they have, and if they like them, and if they have somebody they like and they can work with, and they're not my age, then you basically would want to go talk to them. It's like your doctor. You don't want to outlive your doctor and vice versa.
I always tell my clients, Ken, to get an attorney that's younger than them.
I know. but yeah. So, and the other thing is that there are attorneys, when I would have clients come to me, and I didn't have much of an opportunity to talk to you about selecting the attorney process, but when I was practicing, and I think it's still pretty much common, all probate trust attorneys will meet with no charge for an hour, although many times it goes over an hour, to discuss with you what your situation is. And after that, interview. And that's important because they find out from you all your particular needs and quirks. They'll say, okay, this is what you need, and this is what it will cost to do it. And this is how long it will take to do it. And then you can make your decision. And it's really a situation where you're feeling them out and they're feeling you out. I mean, I've actually had clients, not a lot, but I always remember I had a covenant of witches that came in. And they wanted to do a trust for the warlord, or where I said, goodbye. You know? But
Ken, we need to talk later, Ken.
But in any event, yeah.
Well, folks, thank you for being here. And let's take a second here just to thank Ken and Lori and Brenda Lee.